There are many UFC fighters who are able to maintain the same output throughout the duration of the fight, but there are some fighters whose conditioning has been a big problem in their fights, where they have had some setbacks in their career. So here is 5 fighters who have the worst gas tanks in the UFC. Number 5. Conor McGregor is one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC today. He possesses both great power and speed, where he has put away top level fighters quite easily. Although these qualities have given him great success inside the octagon, we have seen some issues with his conditioning as the fight progresses. This was seen in his first fight with Nate Diaz at UFC 196, where in the fight, he put full power into every punch and desperately tried to finish Nate Diaz, but it wasn't enough. In the second round, we could see that he started to slow down, where he eventually got tagged by Nate Diaz and exhaustion started to settle in. Eventually he shot for a takedown and was submitted by a rear naked choke in the second round. In the post-fight press conference, he said he wasn't efficient with his energy and that was the reason he lost the contest. In their second fight at UFC 202, he used his energy smartly but still started to slow down as Nate Diaz was putting on the pressure. Even though he won the fight by a majority decision, other fighters have recognized that his gas tank is still one of his biggest holes in his overall game. Number 4. Lando Vannata is a creative fighter who likes to use a lot of movement and feints to attack his opponents. He is constantly throwing a lot of volume strikes, where his level of output requires a lot of energy. His exciting fighting style is great for putting on a show for the fans, but it has affected his performance in the later rounds, where he has gassed himself out in his recent fights. When he recently faced David Tamor at UFC 209, he started off very fast in the first round, where he was throwing his signature flashy strikes, but slowly started to fade away as the rounds progressed, where he lost the fight by a unanimous decision. He later admitted that his conditioning is something that he needs to work on, and it has been the only problem in his career so far. I believe if he worked on his conditioning, he will definitely have success against the top fighters in the lightweight division. Number 3. Hector Lombard is one of the most explosive athletes in the UFC. He does a great job of putting together lightning quick combinations and tries his best to finish the fight as quick as possible. His pressure forward fighting style involves a lot of energy being used. He almost looks too much for the finish, in which he uses too much power, where he has gassed himself out on numerous occasions. When he fought Neil Magny at UFC Fight Night 85, he started the first round very aggressive, where he had Neil Magny pinned against the fence and had almost finished him, but was unable to. In the second round, Hector Lombard looked exhausted, where Neil Magny picked up the pace and was able to get a takedown and do a lot of damage, almost finishing him, but Hector Lombard survived. In the third round, Hector Lombard was so exhausted that Neil Magny was easily able to take him down and was able to finish him by TKO. His aggressive fighting style involves him using a lot of energy and requires great conditioning to maintain the level of output inside the octagon. Number 2. Whenever Erik Silva competes, he usually fights at a high pace, where he likes to pressure his opponents and likes to finish the fight as soon as he can. In his earlier fights in the UFC, he had great success in finishing fighters in the first round. However, once he started moving up the welterweight ladder and fighting tougher opponents, we could clearly see his conditioning was affected in the later rounds. He would start to slow down over the course of the fight, where he would usually gas out. Many have said since USADA has been implemented, he hasn't looked like the same fighter he once was. This may be true, but his conditioning has always let him down in progressing up the welterweight ladder. I believe if he had great conditioning, he would definitely be a force to be reckoned with in the welterweight division. Number 1. Many consider Anthony Johnson as a first-round fighter, as he exerts all of his power in the first round, trying to finish his opponent as quick as possible. His striking involves him throwing big wild punches, which can cause tremendous amounts of damage. If he isn't able to get the finish, we have seen him start to slow down as the rounds progress and begins to become slow in his movement inside the octagon. This was seen in his first fight against Daniel Cormier at UFC 187, where he came out all guns blazing, trying to take Daniel Cormier's head off. As soon as DC put the pressure on him and started grappling with him, he slowly started to gas out, where he ended up getting choked out in the third round. He is still one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC, and hopefully he can make a return in the UFC in the future.